The press room buzzed with flashing cameras and hurried pens. President Donald Trump stood at the podium speaking with trademark confidence about education reform. The air was thick with anticipation. Reporters poised, ready to dissect every word. Among them sat Megan Carter, a young journalist with a reputation for sharp, unflinching questions. She leaned forward, notebook in hand, gripping her pen like a weapon. When the president finished, she rose. "Mr. President," she called out, her voice clear, edged with urgency, "many believe your reforms only serve the privileged. What do you say to struggling families who feel forgotten?" The room froze. A ripple of tension swept through the crowd as heads turned. Trump raised his chin, preparing to fire back. But before he could speak, a figure at the side of the stage shifted. Barron Trump, 18 years old, silent, reserved, and almost never in the public eye. Yet now, to everyone's shock, he stepped forward. "Can I answer that?" he asked softly. The reporters gasped. Even his father seemed caught off guard. After a pause, Trump gave a small nod. The cameras swiveled toward Barron. The room seemed to tilt, holding its breath. "You asked about families who feel forgotten," Barron began. His voice wasn't loud, but it was steady, thoughtful. "I've seen them too. Not from behind his podium, but in places where cameras don't go." Reporters leaned in. Megan's pen hovered, motionless. "Last year," Barron continued, "I met a boy my age who worked nights to support his little sister. He told me he felt invisible. That word, it stayed with me. The words weren't polished. They weren't political. They were raw, human." Megan felt her pulse quicken. She had prepared for a duel with the president. Instead, she found herself disarmed by sincerity. Trump, uncharacteristically silent, watched his son. For once, he wasn't the president defending policy. He was a father listening. "We talk about budgets and policies," Barron said, gaining rhythm, "but sometimes it's not about numbers. It's about seeing people, really seeing them. When we don't, they feel forgotten. And when they feel forgotten, we all lose." The room stilled. Even the click of a camera shutter sounded intrusive. Barron turned toward Megan, locking eyes with her. "You asked the right question," he said simply. "But maybe the answer isn't only what leaders will do. Maybe it's what each of us will do to make sure no one feels invisible." Trump finally stepped forward, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. His voice was quiet. That was a very good answer. The narrative shifted. By nightfall, the press conference replayed across every major network. But it wasn't Trump's speech the world remembered. It was Barron's words, unexpected, heartfelt, and impossible to ignore. Clips flooded social media. Hashtags trended worldwide. Commentators called it the honesty we needed to hear. In her apartment, Megan replayed the moment over and over. She had planned a sharp critique of Trump's policies. Instead, she found herself haunted by Barron's expression, earnest. Her editor urged, "Your story's about Barron now." That clip is everywhere. People want to know who he really is. She hesitated. She had built her career on cutting through political spin. But this wasn't spin. It was something else. Her first draft read clinically at today's press conference. President Trump's son Barron made a rare appearance answering a pointed question. But it felt flat, lifeless. She deleted it and began again. Sometimes the most unexpected voices remind us of truths we forget to see. Today, that voice belonged to Barron Trump. By dawn, the article was live. Readers flooded the comments, sharing their own stories of feeling invisible. Parents, veterans, single mothers, struggling workers. One wrote, "I lost my job last year." Hearing Barron say those words, it felt like someone finally saw me. The moment had become more than a viral clip. It was a conversation. Even Trump, at a later cabinet meeting, admitted with a chuckle, "Looks like my boy stole the show." But behind the humor was pride and something quieter, humility for Barron. The sudden spotlight was suffocating. He never intended to go viral. That day, he had simply spoken what weighed on his heart. A week later, in a quiet diner, he sat by the window with a cup of coffee. Secret Service nearby. That's when he noticed a young man bussing tables, about his age. His clothes were worn, his shoulders heavy with exhaustion. Their eyes met. "You're Barron Trump, right?" The boy asked nervously. But, instead of a selfie request, the boy whispered, "I saw your clip. What you said did meant a lot." "I'm Jake. I work here to help my mom and sister. Sometimes it feels like no one notices. But when I heard you, it felt like someone finally understood." Barron blinked. It was as if the story he told at the press conference had stepped out of memory and sat across from him. Jake was no statistic. He was the face behind the word invisible. Barron pulled out a notepad. He scribbled Jake's name. "I don't know what I can do yet," he admitted, "but I don't want your story to stay invisible." For the first time in weeks, Jake smiled. Not out of relief, but because he felt seen. Meanwhile, Megan followed the ripple effect of her article. The hashtag Barron's words had become a gathering place where ordinary people poured out their hidden struggles. She began reaching out farmers in Ohio, veterans in Texas, single parents across the country. Each echoed the same refrain: "We feel invisible." Then Megan discovered Jake. Through a local source, she confirmed Barron had been meeting him quietly, without cameras, without press, listening, learning. Not as the president's son, but as a young man trying to understand. The story had started as a confrontation, but it had become something far more enduring, an unexpected reminder that leadership isn't always about power. Sometimes it begins with listening. Megan's curiosity only deepened. Why would the president's son born into wealth and privilege care so deeply about ordinary struggles? When she finally secured an interview with Barron, she asked him directly. He shrugged, almost shy. "No one chooses where they're born," he said, "but everyone deserves to be seen." It wasn't political. It wasn't rehearsed. It was simply human. Megan realized this story was no longer about a viral clip. It was about an unexpected bridge between two worlds, connected by empathy. Weeks passed, and what began as a single moment bloomed into a movement. Across the country, communities began hosting visibility nights where people could share their stories without judgment. Schools, churches, small businesses all joined in, united by the idea that being seen mattered. Jake, once just a boy working in a diner, was invited to speak at a local town hall. Nervous but encouraged by Barron's quiet support, he told the crowd about balancing school, work, and family. His words weren't perfect, but they were real, and that was enough. Barron sat in the back, out of the spotlight. Afterward, Jake approached him. "I don't know how to thank you. You don't owe me thanks," Barron replied with a smile. "Just promise me you'll keep telling your story. People need to hear it." Megan's second article shifted the focus. This time it wasn't just about Barron, it was about the voices his words had unearthed. Jake, a struggling farmer, a veteran, a single mother. All different, yet all echoing the same ache of invisibility. The hashtag changed from hashtag Barron's words to hashtag We Are Seen. It wasn't about politics anymore. It was about humanity. One evening, Trump invited Barron into the Oval Office. "You've started something big," he said, his voice a mix of pride and caution. "But be careful. People will twist your words. They'll try to use you." Barron nodded. "I know, but Daddy, it's not about me. It's about people like Jake." Trump studied him. For all his years in politics, he had rarely seen his son so determined. Something about it reminded him of a fire he himself had once lost the desire to connect, simply and honestly. "Do you want to lead this?" Trump asked. "Because if you do, the world won't let you halfway." Barron thought carefully. "I don't want to be a leader. I just want to make sure people don't feel invisible. If I can do that, even a little, it's enough." Trump leaned back, uncharacteristically quiet. "You've taught me something," he admitted. "Maybe I've been so focused on winning, I forgot what it means to just..." Listen, Megan faced her own crossroads. Her articles drew national attention. Her editor whispered about awards. Yet late one night, scrolling through the stories tagged hashtag We Are, seen a teacher in Kansas, a refugee in California, a mother in Detroit, she felt uneasy. Was she profiting off people's pain? The next day, she visited Jake at the diner and confided her doubts. Jake, wiping down a table, looked at her and said simply, "You're not exploiting us. You're helping people listen. Before this, no one cared what I had to say. Now my voice matters." Megan realized he was right. Journalism at its best wasn't about tearing down, it was about shining a light. Inspired, she decided her next piece wouldn't just tell stories, it would invite action. To volunteer, donate, mentor, to not just read about the invisible, but to see them. Jake's struggles didn't vanish overnight. He still worked late nights, still fought to keep up in school, still carried the weight of family. One evening, exhausted, he broke down in front of Barron. "Sometimes I feel like I'm failing. No matter how hard I try." Barron didn't offer solutions. He just listened, then said quietly, "You're not failing. You're carrying more than most people your age ever will. That's strength, not weakness." Jake looked away, eyes wet. "But what if I can't keep going?" Barron put a hand on his shoulder. "Then I'll be here." "You don't have to do it alone." It wasn't politics. It wasn't policy. It was friendship. Critics, of course, emerged. Some said Barron was a political pawn. Others mocked Jake's story, dismissing it as exaggerated. The noise grew so loud Jake considered retreating back into silence. But then, at a local gathering, a woman stood and shared how Jake's courage had inspired her to return to school. A man said he had reconnected with his estranged son after hearing Barron's words. Jake realized the critics didn't matter. The change was real. Barron, too, faced attacks, but when asked about them, he responded simply, "If even one person feels less invisible because of this, then it's worth it." Megan's career soared, but so did her doubt. One night, her mother called. "I've read your articles," she said gently. "You know why they move people? Because you're not just writing, you're feeling." Megan sat in silence, tears rising. Her sharp questions had once defined her. But now, for the first time in years, she was writing from the heart. She pitched a bold idea, a documentary series highlighting forgotten voices across America. Her editor hesitated, but Megan pressed. "This isn't just news, it's humanity." To her surprise, the network agreed. Meanwhile, Barron and Jake began sketching a plan. "We should start something," Barron said one night on the phone. "Not just publicity. Real help, scholarships, mentorships, a platform for voices like yours." Jake was stunned. "You mean it?" "I can't fix everything," Barron admitted, "but we can shine a light. And sometimes that's enough to change a life together." They launched the Scene Initiativa Foundation, dedicated to amplifying unheard voices. It began small scholarships, mentoring, storytelling events. But it grew fast. Barron wasn't chasing fame. His reward came in moments like when a young girl hugged him after sharing her story and whispered, "Thank you for seeing me, Trump." "Watching from the sidelines," told Melania one night, "Our boy is teaching the nation something I couldn't. Maybe he's teaching me." 2 months later, Jake stood on a stage at the Scene Initiative's first scholarship event. He gripped the microphone, nerves trembling in his voice. "A year ago, I felt invisible. I worked nights, struggled in school, and thought no one noticed. But then one moment changed everything, not because it fixed my problems, but because someone finally listened." He paused, glancing at Barron in the audience, who gave him a nod. "Being seen gave me the strength to keep going. And if my story matters, so does yours." The room erupted in applause. Jake realized he wasn't just surviving anymore. He was helping others find their voices. Megan's documentary, Invisible No More, premiered months later. It wove together stories from across America's students, veterans, single parents, dreamers. At its heart was Barron's viral moment and Jake's journey. But Megan made sure the film wasn't about one person. It was about all of them. The premiere ended in tears and standing ovations. Viewers left not just informed, but changed. Afterward, Megan told Barron, "Your words may have started this, but it's the people who carried it forward. That's the real story." Barron smiled. "Good, that's how it should be." One evening, Barron visited Jake's home. His mother hugged him tightly, whispering, "Thank you for seeing my son." But it was Jake's little sister, Lily, who tugged at his sleeve and said, "Because of you, my brother smiles again." Barron knelt, his eyes misting. "No, Lily, because of him, the world is learning to listen." Megan captured the moment for her closing scene. It wasn't staged. It wasn't polished. It was real. The final frame bore Lily's words in bold, "Because of you, my brother smiles again." The message went viral not because it was political, but because it was profoundly human. The lesson was clear. Sometimes the most powerful leaders aren't those with titles. They're the ones who remind us to truly see each other. And Barron Trump, through one unexpected answer, had done just that.